You're listening to the Mile You're In podcast. Everything running related from 100 meters to 100 miles. And now, here's your host, Phil Patterson Jr.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Mile You're In podcast. And no, you're not dreaming. This is really happening. I'm doing a new episode. I know it's been God knows how long, because I'd have to look on my app to see when the last time I put out an episode was. It's been so long that I didn't even really remember how I used to set this up and what I used to do first. Like, this is another time, I think this is the third time I'm attempting to record this, because I kept realizing I was doing things wrong. And like, my girlfriend just called me and I didn't have the phone on silent. So like, I'm shaking off the rust, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm back, but but it's a lot of stuff been going on. I've been doing some things in my personal life. I also been working on a book. So if you're into reading, stay tuned, because I'm working on publishing my own book. I've been working on that. It's similar to what I do with the podcast, but on a deeper level. I talk about a lot of more personal things. It's going all the way back to my childhood and even leading up to now. But, I've shared it with a couple people, some bits and pieces, just to get their feedback. And it's gotten a lot of good feedback. I think this is going to be a pretty cool project. Just something I wanted to put out. But I don't want to drag on announcements or anything. I do want to give a shout out, though, to Mr. Anonymous, because he's continued to support this show on Patreon, even though I have not put out an episode in months. So thank you for continuing to support the show. I appreciate that. If there's anything else I want to promote, I'll put it in the links in the show notes, so check that out. But let's get right into it. The reason I'm back is for the first time in 2 years, I did a race last week. And just like with this podcast, it was like I had to shake the rust off. I was like, how did I used to prepare for this? What did I used to bring? What was the routine I had? But just like the first time you get on a bike after a long time, or roller skates and things like that, like, you're a little shaky, you're a little unstable, you're trying to remember, but that muscle memory kicks in once you get going, and then it becomes natural, and you just flow with it. So, the race originally was supposed to be a 24-hour race. It was another one of those track races, so you do as many loops, laps, miles, however you want to look at it, around the track within that period of time. But the school, halfway during the process, after they had already approved it, decided for whatever reason they changed their mind, didn't want us on the property that long. So they offered us to drop down to a 12-hour option, which I took because I'd already been training and I was already looking forward to it. So I just altered my goals, obviously, because of the less time. But I had experience with this before, though, doing the 12-hour track race, the Broken Track Ultra, a couple years ago. The only difference was that track literally was a broken track. And, we're talking potholes, grass coming out of it. It was a banked track. And it was in the middle of summer. So this one, brand new track, rubberized track. I had friends that were doing it, so we were able to shout out to Monique, who had the tent, and also had her cousin Celine out there, who was able to kind of help me as like a crew, because I didn't have a crew again. So she was there, able to help me. My girlfriend did come later on to help me towards the end. Ethel, another great friend, ultra runner, was out there helping. So that made it a little bit easier. The weather was so perfect. It really was not hot at all. And it was great. Like, even the bathroom was close, because I remember with the broken track one, you had to kind of, it almost out and back was close to a quarter mile. So this one was nice. It was right there on the track and everything. So what really stood out to me, and I think what started the idea of doing a podcast about this, not just because I did the race, but again, I wanted to put out quality. I didn't want to just put out anything, which is why I haven't put out episodes in a couple months. There were a couple things I wanted to talk about, but nothing that I felt inspired to, and I didn't feel like even kind of digging deep into it to come up with some talking points about it. But this time, something I do in every race, no matter what the distance is I always take a moment. I kind of get away from the crowds, and I just have a moment of prayer, and mainly to thank God for the opportunity, because like I had with my coaching business, I had one client, and she was making progress. She was really making progress towards the goal that she hired me to help her reach. And then she had some medical issues happen, and she hasn't been able to run since. And, you know, when she reached out to me a little bit before the race, it was a reminder that I'm able to do something that her and others are not able to. Some people really wish they could just go for a walk. They could just enjoy simple things like that, going outside and getting the fresh air. So it was a reminder to be grateful for the opportunity. I even just now thinking about it, I get emotional, because I think about the times when I was injured and running and I missed it. You know, this is something I really love to do. I'm really passionate about. It's therapeutic to me. So I thought about that, and I really just give him thanks every time for the opportunity, for the healthy addiction. And then I just ask always to be a good example while I'm out there, because I know, especially during these ultras, I can get grumpy. I can have an attitude. I could be negative. So this time, what I wanted to do, because the race was about an hour away, it was real early in the morning. I didn't feel like really listening to anything yet. Typically for races, I really don't. I kind of like that moment of silence before the race to just kind of calm my nerves and my mind, and just kind of almost meditate in a sense. But because I knew this was going to be a little bit hectic once I got there, having to, you know, set everything up before the race, and get my bib and all my stuff, and you know, I said this time on my way there, I'm gonna have my moment with God then, and do it a little bit less rushed and more privately. And you know, I have a little Bible app on my phone, and every day I'll read the verse of the day. And on the way, the verse was almost perfectly designed for me. And I'll read it to you real quick. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's Philippians 2:7-8. And the key parts of the verse, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there were two parts that stood out to me. The beginning where it says, but emptied himself. And then later on it said, he humbled himself by becoming obedient. And I thought about my goals for this race. When I did the broken track 12-hour race, my goal was to get 50 miles. I was close. I think I was at 45 or 46. But I looked back, even immediately after the race, I looked back at how the day went and realized I took a lot of unnecessary breaks. I made a lot of excuses. I did a lot of things I shouldn't have done. I didn't stick to my game plan. There's just a lot of stuff that I could have did differently and met my goal. So when I went into this race, I remembered that. And I said, I need to be obedient, like the verse said. I have a game plan. I know how my body reacts. If I stick to the game plan as far as how my eating and drinking goes, and my walk run pace and things like that, and I run my own race and not try to worry about what place I'm in or you know, looking good for anybody and things like that, having an ego or anything. If I stick to my game plan, I know what I'm capable of. So I had to remember, like the verse said, to be humble and be obedient. But the other part that stood out was emptying myself. And that was the thing, like for that broken track, when I looked back, I was tired, but I said, man, I didn't really give it my all. I did not empty myself out. And other races, like when I hit my goal of running under 20 minutes in the 5K, I emptied myself on that race. There's other races where I was trying to break that personal record, and I realized I held back at certain times, or I emptied myself too soon because I wasn't humble and obedient. So it was like the verse was reminding me going into this race that I could empty myself at any given point. I could go all out in the first 2 hours and then suffer the last 10. but I'm probably not going to beat my goal. If I'm humble and I'm obedient, I can empty myself over that 12-hour period and meet my goal. You know, I always say run the mile you're in, right? So it's easy to look at the whole goal and forget what mile you're in. Then it's easy to look at the mile you're in and forget the goal that you have set. I think I've said this before on the podcast. I know I've said it to people elsewhere, but I always remember when I was running the long haul 100 and I was in a group of guys, kind of just sticking with them. I like to sometimes, if I realize I'm running with a group and they're running the pace I want to run, I like to hang with them because it keeps me from running too fast. So I'm running with these guys, and it's in ultras, people talk, not like the regular 5K to marathon races. People don't really talk. Occasionally, yes, but mostly no. Ultras, everybody's always talking. So the guys are talking, hey, how you doing? How you feeling? Hey, what's your plan? And I'll always remember, I can hear this guy in my head when I'm doing races, is I hate this part of the race because everything feels good, but I know it's not going to last. So I have to remind myself to slow down because I'm not going to be able to do this forever. Now, in the past, when I wasn't humble and I wasn't obedient, even though I knew that, I would still have the mentality of, okay, I'm going to ride this high until I can't ride it no more, and kind of put that time or that money in the bank so that later on I'm a little bit ahead. So when I slow down, I have that cushion. It always backfired because the slower portion of that race ended up being slower than the faster portion of the race, and it didn't balance out. No matter how much extra time I tried to put and how many extra miles I tried to put in the fast part, in the beginning part, it never worked out in my favor. So I had to remind myself in this race, you feel great right now, but stick to your plan. And my plan really for this race was, depending on how I felt, I was going to run no more than 2 miles straight without a walk break, because that's where I feel my freshest. And I know from the past, if I tried to push more than that, it came back to bite me. This race, there was a strong headwind coming from the north. Now, knowing that this was a track race and we turned directions every 3 hours, I knew, okay, yes, I'm changing directions, but I'm still going to have this. We're still running on the track. So I'm always going to be going north and south for the most part. So the only difference is the headwind is going to be on a different part of the track when we do the turnaround. That was really the only difference. So the longer those first 2 hours went, the more I noticed the headwind was just exhausting me more and more. So I altered my game plan from that point. And I didn't even end up going the whole 2 hours. Around the 1 hour mark, I took my first walk break just to get my hydration in and get some fuel in and kind of assess how I was going to do this. I went the next about 50 minutes. The goal was to try to get another hour in of just straight running. But again, that wind was stronger. And I feel like it got stronger later in the race when the sun went down. So I think like early when the sun was coming up and the sun was going down, it got stronger. The race was from 7 to 7. So we started the first hour about in the dark and finished the last hour about in the dark. And I just remember assessing how this was working. And I told myself, okay, I already see how this is going to go. If I try a timed interval, like a 2-minute run, 1-minute walk or anything like that, I'm going to get stuck running against this wind every once in a while. So I changed my game plan from that point and said, I'm going to walk the headwind stretch and run the rest. So that pretty much meant I was going to run 100 meters or walk 100 meters and run 300 meters. I did that for a couple loops and noticed my time was still looking great. It was keeping me on pace for my goals. So I said, this is what we're going to do for the rest of the race. Conserve your energy for these 100 meters and then not go all out for the 300 meters, but give yourself that good pace. And it was working. And it was kind of fun. I like races like this because they have the screens up So every loop you can see pretty much all the stats you need to see. But it's also kind of fun to see because there is still that competitive spirit that you have, especially having a friend there. Sometimes you have that friendly competition. So just watching myself and what place I was in and how far I was going, it was nice because also when you do these races, you realize your watch, no matter what brand watch you have, it's never going to be as accurate, especially since when they mark these courses, they do it to a certain line. And for example, in this race, like they say on a track, it's measured from 6 inches from the inside of lane 1. So anytime you're going around to pass people, or when you had to go to the bathroom, or if you stepped off the track to go to your tent, you're adding little bits at a time, and over a 12-hour period, that's going to add up. So your watch will say one thing, but the official mileage and loops is going to say another thing. So it was just good to know, okay, this is where I'm really at, and to use that as a gauge of sticking to your game plan. Not too much I could really say about the race overall. It was very well managed. Shout out to the 6-hour runner, whoever they were, that bought us 12-hour runners pizza at the halfway mark. So we all had some thin crust pizza to eat. But I really just stuck to the little bit that I brought and the little bit that they had at the aid station. I just ate when I was hungry, drank when I was thirsty. That way I didn't over consume or under consume, and it was really working. I this time told myself no breaks. I wasn't going to sit down. The only time I sat down was when I had to use the bathroom 2 times. That was it. Otherwise, I was in and out, always on my feet, always moving, because I had 2 goals. The main goal was 50 miles. The second goal was to see if I could get 100K in that time. And in the beginning, I was on pace for that 100K, but I realized around the 6-hour mark that was going to be really tough, and I didn't really want to push myself. Also, considering that last weekend, that weekend of the race was a 1-year anniversary of my incident where I had to go to the hospital 2 times for the heart palpitations and everything that happened last Thanksgiving. So since then, I really had not run more than 14 miles in a single run. And if I'll be honest with you, that 14-mile run that I did was 2 days before the race on Thanksgiving morning. Pretty much the longest run that I had done for a whole year was 10 miles. Everything was 3 to 10 mile runs. I hadn't really been putting in long runs. I did a couple 12 and 13 mile runs leading up to the race, like a month in advance. And then, like I said, 2 days before the race on Thanksgiving, I did 14. I think it was like 14 and a half. So once I got to like the 20-mile mark of the race, my body was reminding me of, hey, I'm familiar with this, but I'm not prepared for this. So the aches and pains that I was starting to feel were familiar, but they're aches and pains that I normally would feel when I got to that 50-mile mark of a 100-mile race. So that's another reason why I had to tell myself, look, you're not as prepared as you normally are. You're not as trained as you normally are. So we have to kind of ease off that gas pedal a little bit and maybe take a little bit more walk breaks than we like. So instead of taking those longer walk breaks, let's take more shorter ones so we're still staying fresh and not getting too stiff and too comfortable, I guess you would say. So again, just being humble, reminding myself constantly during the race. I kept thinking of this verse on the way here because I was like, God, you really put this verse here for me today to remind me, because otherwise I probably would have got cocky and would have just emptied myself too soon. But I just remembered that verse, being humble, being obedient, and emptying myself. And I really, again, there's not too much because you're just running around a track. So there's not too many different things that happened or could have taken place other than just something that was really nice was some of the people that were out there were people that I haven't seen in a long time because I haven't been out on, anywhere really other than solo runs. And two of the race directors from the Octopus Ultra, which was my last completed race, my last completed 100 miler, the redemption story episode 100 miler, they were there. And just to talk to them and to hear them say, man, I'm glad to see you back out here. You went incognito. You've been gone for so long. You disappeared, and it's just really nice to see you back out here, see you healthy. Like, things like that really got me emotional, and again made me grateful and thankful for the opportunity to be out here and doing what I love and being surrounded by people that I enjoy. So I really I'll fast forward to the end. I was getting tired. I knew my girlfriend was going to be coming to see me finish, and it was something I told her would really mean a lot to me because I finished so many of these races by myself, and you almost feel lonely at the end of it. You feel accomplished, but you don't have somebody to celebrate it with, and that makes it special when you do. And she ended up coming way earlier than I thought, and it just really put an extra pep in my step. I won't really say, to be honest, that I ever felt like I had to grind a low during this race. I wasn't always riding a high, but I don't feel like I was ever grinding a low. Maybe the last couple of laps when I was really just starting to feel blisters and things like that. But otherwise, I was always upbeat and always positive during this race and joking around and happy and enjoying myself. But to see her there and to hear her words of encouragement, seeing her there being active and helping me and getting stuff from me really just kind of lifted my spirits and got me going a little bit more again. And I noticed I started picking up my pace again, just because I had a little bit of a new life and a new high to ride. And when I got into the final hour, I had hit my 50-hour goal. I knew I wasn't going to hit the 100K goal. So I contemplated, do I stop here? Do I, I've hit my goal. Do I just chill and relax for the last hour, or do I want to see what I'm capable of and push myself? And I told myself, all right, you know what? Let's just go for 52. Let's hit 52. Then you get 52, and I was, it's funny because I was going to stop, and I said, I remember I stopped at the tent for a second and was telling everybody, yeah, my goal was 52, but I think I'm going to round it to 53 because with a track not being an even, a perfect quarter mile, you were not ending on a quarter mile, half mile, 3/4 of a mile, and a mile every time. It was 0.2 under. So you were never at the numbers were off. And I just remember finishing and being close to 53, and I said, I think I'm just going to finish this and round it to 53. And Celine was like, well, 53 is kind of close to 55. Why don't you do 55? And once it's that motivation, it's that I know what you're capable of, because she's seen me at a lot of races. Me and Monique, we've done a lot of races together, and her cousin Celine has been there to crew her, and she's seen me push through a lot of stuff. So coming from her, it was I could trust the encouragement and the advice to push to 55 because she knows I'm capable of it. So that was really nice to receive that, because then it was like, you know what? Yeah, I can do 55. And just again, each time you it's the beauty of a race like this is you're constantly seeing your support. So every time I finished that loop and my girlfriend would say something encouraging, it just kept me going, and I was able to get to the 55-mile mark. I could have squeezed in one more lap, but I was good. At 55, I was done. And it was just a reminder that if you have a game plan, no matter what it is in life, a school goal, a career goal, a life goal, an athletic goal, whatever it is, if you have a goal and you come up with a game plan and you stick to it, you have the best chance to be successful. Along the way, you're going to have bumps and curves and obstacles that are going to cause you to make adjustments. But with your knowledge and research of whatever it is that you're trying to do, and with you surrounding yourself with the right people that also have that knowledge and experience, you give yourself a better chance to be successful. And that's what I really took from this and wanted to share with everyone else, that it wasn't just about having a goal to run a certain distance in a certain amount of time. It was, I'm undertrained and underprepared, but I have experience at this point, and I know what I'm capable of if I do things a certain way. And it was a reminder that when I stick to the plan and don't wander off and do something differently because I'm feeling a different way, that I could be more successful. And even this morning when I went to go run, I had in my mind, because I'm also signed up to do a marathon next Sunday. So in my mind, it was, all right, let's go out and do, let's try to get 13 miles in. But I could tell right away, my body is still kind of recovering from last week. So I said, no, like I'm going to do 6, maybe 7, but I'm not going to push my body to do the 13. In the past, I would have, and I would have somehow along the way paid for it in the next couple of days, or maybe it affects how I perform next Sunday. But I remember now, especially as I've gotten older and matured, I've learned the importance of rest and recovery. And I really, again, just want to hone in on 2 of those 3 things: being humble and being obedient. The third thing, don't look at it as emptying yourself. Look at it as giving something your all. So whatever your goal is, if you have to grind, and that's why part of the reason, I'm not going to get too deep into things, but part of the reason that I haven't done episodes over the last couple of months is I have a goal. And in order to meet that goal, I've been using my time differently and giving that my all, because in order to reach that goal, things had to change. So when it came to this race, I had a goal. I had to stick to the plan that I made for it, but remain humble and remain obedient. So again, take that from this episode. Whatever it is you're chasing, come up with your game plan. Go over your game plan. Surround yourself with people that you can reach out to for tips, feedback, suggestion, advice. Maybe you can alter the plan, or at least they can provide you with suggestions on what to do if things change. And go after what you want to go after. I want to shout out every single person that went out and put their bodies out there through that, because I witnessed a lot during that race. And that's another one of the beauties of a race like this, is you get to see so much more than on those out and backs or point to point races or isolated trail races. When you're on a track, you can see everything that's going on. And I saw so many people that I thought were going to drop out because things started going south for them. When I was in the bathroom, one of the runners ran in and was puking, and I made sure he was okay, and he was like, yeah, this is where it usually goes south. And I kind of just, the rest of the race sucks, but he pushed through and had an amazing race. I may be wrong. I think he won the 6-hour race. One of the women out there, something happened with her foot and her ankle, and she stopped, and she was sitting on the bench, and she looked concerned, and she was calling her crew over, and I thought she was going to drop out. And Minutes later, here she comes trucking along, passing me again, and just high spirits and finished the race. Another woman that was dealing with cramps and trying to get her hydration right because she was just losing so much, and I thought she was going to drop out multiple times because she literally looked like she was going to fall over because the spasms from the cramps, and she just pushed through and kept going. She stuck with her plan, altered it a little bit. Every one of these individuals had plans. Monique, who was dealing with nausea and was throwing up and struggling with her fuel, continued to push multiple times. I just kept seeing people that were grinding the lows, and once they pushed through that and they were feeling better, they were riding the highs. And it's the best thing you can do in any journey you are in life. Is the lows should make you cherish the highs and appreciate the highs, and the highs should make you remember that the lows don't last forever and that things will get better. So with that, until the next episode, which I'll be honest, I don't know when the next episode will be. I'll try to do one after the marathon. Maybe I'll do that. But until the next episode, humble yourself, be obedient, and give it your all.
Thanks for listening to the Mile You're In podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe.